Hey everybody, it's Joel Williams and Chase Elleby coming to you today with another question that we get a lot, and that is how long will it take to settle my personal injury case? So there's a lot of factors that play into this, and I know everybody wants a 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 3 years type answer, but it's just simply not that simple. So there are the factors that you have to consider when you're trying to figure out how long is it going to take, or what we're going to go over today. So Chase, why don't you get us started off?
Yeah, so I guess the first one would be how much treatment are you going to need, right? How severe are your injuries? So if you treat for 6 weeks, your case is going to go a lot quicker than if you're treating for a year and a half, 2 years. So that's one of the first things we talk about is, okay, the question is how long it's going to take. It's like, well, it's up to you. If you're going to treat, the doctor needs you to come in, do therapy, you need to have surgery, you need to do therapy after the surgery. It's going to take much longer if it's just a quick kind of ER, chiropractor visit, whatever it might be.
Yep. Another thing that can play into it is how much money is available to recover from. And usually what we're looking when we're trying to find out what's in the pot to recover from is how much insurance is available. So there's been quite a few times throughout the course of our career where there's been minimal limits insurance for, say, an automobile wreck. In Georgia, that's $25,000 and varies from state to state. But then somebody gets in the wreck, they go to the hospital, and they all of a sudden have $50,000 in medical bills. Well, then the challenge in the case is not trying to get the insurance money. The challenge in that case is trying to figure out how far we can stretch it by getting people to reduce bills and things of that nature. But usually, if your medical bills, if your medical bills are higher than the insurance that's available, the insurance company is going to pay you pretty quickly. But if you've got $2,000 in medical bills and there's a $25,000 policy, they're probably not going to just write you a check.
Right, exactly. And two, in that situation, if there's plenty of insurance coverage and you're going to need treatment, you need to treat, do everything you can to get better, and then you can present the whole case to the insurance company knowing that there's enough coverage there to compensate you for those injuries. So another factor to consider is the complexity of the case, right? If you're arguing over liability, who's at fault, if you have to file suit, take a bunch of depositions, well, that's going to take a lot of time. Joel and I both have cases that have lasted 5-6 years plus, because you're arguing over certain things or you're in a certain court that takes a while to get actually on a trial calendar. So the complexity of the case can certainly dictate how long it's going to take to get the case resolved.
Yeah, and speaking of courts, I have one right now that's been ready for trial, and the court knows it's been ready for trial for over a year.
Right.
And everything's been done. All we need is the court to say, okay, you guys come in on August the 1st and we'll try this case. It's literally a case involving 3 witnesses and some chiropractic bills. That's it. It'll take 1 day to try, but the court has not given us a trial date. There's nothing we can do about it. And the insurance company's lowballing us. So our only option at this point is to continue to pester the court for a trial date and wait until they finally give us that trial date and let a jury decide. So some things are completely out of your control unless you're willing to settle for pennies on the dollar. And in that particular case, our client is not, and I don't blame her one bit.
Yeah, that reminds me of the case that we had, that if we didn't get called to the trial calendar in that week, it would have been a whole nother year until we came up on the trial calendar on that case. This was pre-COVID, when courts were, operating smoothly, that if we had not been called, it would have been a whole nother year before we would have gone to trial. So that would have delayed it even that much longer. So.
Yeah. And that kind of brings us to the next point. A lot of times the reason you're forced to file a lawsuit or go to trial is because the insurance company on the other side is not making you a fair offer. Sometimes they do that because they know it takes a while to get to trial. Sometimes they do that to test the waters to see whether you're willing to take less than what your case is worth. But different insurance companies handle it differently. So if you've got Allstate on one side, or State Farm, or Progressive, or Geico, or any list of the bazillion different insurance companies that are out there, they all take a different approach. And one may offer you $10,000 for this in the same case that another may offer you $20,000 in.
Yeah.
And so, what insurance company you're dealing with can play into how long it takes to settle.
Right, and that kind of, boils down to the fact that there's no one size fits all sort of formula to determine what the value of your case is. And I know we've had videos on the value of your case. So that's why you have other insurance companies that will say, hey, $10,000 or $20,000 when it's the exact same thing. So All right, so another thing to consider is what your client's risk tolerance is going to be, right? Some folks are, hey, let's get the case resolved, let's knock it out, I don't want to fool with it. Other folks are, they're offering me what? Let's go to trial, let's appeal it. Whatever their risk tolerance is going to be is going to dictate also how long the case lasts.
Yeah, we've seen it across the board too. I mean, we have some clients and we're like, no, don't take that. You need to fight harder. We believe we can get you more and all
Right.
that. And then we have some clients who are like, oh, that's a decent offer, and they're like, nope, going to trial.
Right,
And
yeah.
so, ultimately, at least at our firm, when it comes to whether to settle or not, it's up to the client.
Absolutely.
And so risk tolerance plays a factor into how long it takes a case to get settled. And then also, frankly, our clients' willingness to wait longer to get more, or whether they just want to be done with it and shut it down and not take that risk or take the extra time.
Yeah.
Which that kind of brings us to another point, and that is a factor that is sort of out of your control, but it is within your control, and that is how many cases is your lawyer handling at one time, right? So plaintiff's injury firms range the gamut from huge firms with more than 100 lawyers to single solo practitioners that are the only person in their office. But no matter how big or small the firm is, each lawyer has a particular caseload. Some lawyers handle 500 cases at once, some lawyers handle 10. So really, if you have a lawyer, it's going to factor into how long your case takes to settle, because that lawyer is only got so much time and so many resources to put into each case. So if you hire a lawyer that's working 500 cases, well, there's 499 other cases that lawyer's working on that they have to give attention to as well. Whereas if you hire a lawyer that's handling one case and that's your case, well, that's all that lawyer's got to do. So, it all plays into it, but you want to kind of find that middle ground, because if a lawyer's got one case, there's probably a reason they have one case, and that's because somebody doesn't have a lot of confidence in them. But you don't want a lawyer that's so overworked they can't put the attention needed into your case. So at least at our firm, what we try to do is limit the number of cases each lawyer works. But at the same time, like Chase was talking about earlier, when a client is done treating, when the doctor says, hey, you're as good as you're going to get, or you are completely better, at that point, we work diligently to try to gather all of the medical records and bills, because we usually have the other evidence by that time, and then try to get a demand out the door quickly, because at least in the state of Georgia and auto wreck cases and a lot of other cases, we can send demands with 30-day time limits. So it kind of forces the insurance company's hand that once we give them all the evidence they need to decide the case, then they have a time limit on when they have to respond. And sometimes they pay the demand, sometimes they give us a different offer or whatever, and how they respond dictates how fast the case will settle.
Yeah, exactly. So sort of in the same vein with how many cases you might have as a plaintiff's lawyer, defense lawyers and insurance companies also have a lot of cases, but more importantly, they're in the business of denying claims and holding onto their money as long as they can. So it takes a long time, depending on the types of cases, for them to either resolve the case or to even get to trial. So that's another factor that can definitely slow down the case.
Yeah. So I think that's 7 major factors that affect how long it can take your personal injury case to settle. And just to review back over those, they are the severity of your injuries and how long you need to treat for them, the amount of insurance that's available to recover from, the complexity of your case, which insurance companies are involved, your risk tolerance, the number of cases your lawyer has, and how many cases the insurance company or the insurance adjuster has. So that pretty much sums it up. If this video has been helpful to you, we appreciate you giving us a thumbs up, hitting that subscribe button. Otherwise, we will see you next week.